In my past life, I was the daughter of the wealthiest man in Jiangnan. I was infatuated with Lu Wenqin, a poor but principled scholar. I squandered my family's fortune to support his political ambitions, vowing to marry no one else. On the third day of our marriage, he passed the imperial examination as top scholar and was appointed to the Hanlin Academy, immediately departing for the capital to assume his post. I remained at the ancestral home to care for his bedridden, widowed mother and his sharp-tongued, spiteful younger sister-in-law. My mother-in-law insisted that an official's household must be frugal and austere, seizing all my dowry under the pretext of supplementing the household expenses. On the day of my difficult labor, she scolded the midwife away, claiming there was no money. She left me to tear at the bedsheets, blood soaking through the brocade quilt, bleeding to death. After my death, I lingered in this world, unwilling to rest. Lu Wenqin, clad in his brand new official robes, appeared with a gentlemannered woman and a lively boy. His tone was soft. My mother has a terrible temper. Fortunately, I've found someone to fulfill my filial duties for me. You needn't suffer her torment. As for that woman, I've given her proper status. I owe her nothing more. So my vast fortune and undying devotion merely became stepping stones for his rise and tools for fulfilling filial duties. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day he held that worn book chest, asking my father for my hand in marriage. My eyes fluttered open to see Lu Wenqin standing in our family hall, clutching that very same tattered book chest. Master, though I come from humble means, my devotion to your daughter is sincere. Should I pass the imperial examinations, I shall never betray her deep affection. His voice rang clear, his posture as sturdy as a pine tree, the very image of a lofty scholar. I dug my fingernails deep into my palms to suppress the urge to lunge forward and tear him apart. That face, that voice, they had haunted my nightmares time and again. Young lady, father's voice snapped me back to reality. Mr. Lu is speaking to you. I swiftly lowered my gaze to conceal my hatred, lifting my eyes again with the same adoring expression I'd worn in my past life. Young Master Liu's talents are truly exceptional. Your daughter has long admired him. My voice trembled with just the right touch of bashful shyness. A flicker of smug satisfaction crossed Lu Wenqin's eyes before he assumed his aloof demeanor. Miss Pei flatters me. Father, I tugged lightly at his sleeve and whispered, with such talent, wouldn't it be a shame if young Master Lu were hindered from the imperial examinations due to his family's poverty? Father's brow furrowed slightly. In my past life, at this moment, I would have thrown a tantrum, insisting on marrying only Lu Wenqin, even threatening to starve myself. Now, seeing me speak so sensibly on his behalf, Father sighed reluctantly, though not entirely unwilling. Young Master Lu is indeed learned, but marriage is a weighty matter. It must be approached with caution. I seized the moment. Why not? First, support young Master Lu in his examinations. Should he pass, we can discuss marriage then. This seemed selfless devotion, but it was a trap. Lu Wenqin's eyes lit up. He immediately bowed. If Lord Pei would grant his aid, this humble scholar vows to repay with official rank and honor, arriving in a palanquin to wed your daughter. Father pondered for a moment before finally nodding. Very well, but let me make this clear. If you fail my daughter, may I be struck by lightning and thunder. Lu Wenqin swore, pointing to the heavens with such sincerity it made me sick. I forced back a cold laugh. In my past life, had sworn just like this. And what happened? My corpse was barely cold before he was already harmonizing with his new love. After sending Lu Wenqin away, Father looked deeply troubled. Ingyi, this man's eyes are not right. He is no suitable match. I could hold back no longer, tears streaming down my face. Father, I know. Father was startled. I briefly recounted my past life's ordeal. Hearing this, Father slammed his hand on the table. He'll have his legs broken at once. No. I wiped my tears. Direct revenge would be too easy for him. I want him to watch the wealth and honor within his grasp vanish into thin air. I want him to live his entire life in the agony of unattainable desire. Father remained silent for a long time before finally nodding. What do you want me to do? Oh, first, feign agreement. Give him hope. I sneered coldly. Then, crush it bit by bit. The opportunity came swiftly. 3 days later, War King Chu Lin returned victorious from defeating the Xiongnu, passing through Jiangnan on his triumphant journey back to the capital. As the wealthiest man in the city, Father naturally hosted a banquet to welcome him. Deliver the invitation to young Master Lu. I instructed the maid, then called her back. Wait. Let me see it first. I held the gilded invitation, running my fingers lightly over its surface. In my past life, it was at this very banquet that Lu Wenqin, with a few maudlin poems, won Chu Lin's favor and rose swiftly through the ranks. Now, no need to deliver it. I tore the invitation in two. Tell him the war prince dislikes scholars and fears an awkward encounter. On the day of the banquet, I spotted Lu Wenqin lingering by the flower-adorned gate. He wore his finest blue brocade robe, yet couldn't even enter the main gate. A servant waved him away impatiently. Go, go. The war prince has arrived. No unauthorized persons allowed near. Lu Wenqin's face flushed alternately crimson and ashen, locking eyes with mine across the distance. Feigning panic, I darted behind the door. As the banquet reached its height, a sudden commotion erupted outside. Let me in. I am the future son-in-law of the Pei family, Lu Wenqin bellowed, startling the assembled guests. Chu Lin lifted his eyes toward the doorway, a barely perceptible curve touching his lips. Let him in. When Lu Wenqin burst into the flower hall, his clothes were disheveled, sweat beading on his forehead. His gaze swept over the nobles dressed in brocade robes, finally settling on me with a flicker of disgust. Miss Lingy, what are you doing here? His tone was accusatory, as if I were already his possession. I deliberately lowered my head, fingers twisting a handkerchief. Mr. Lu, Mr. Lu, Miss Pei is conversing with this prince. Chu Lin spoke suddenly. His voice was not loud, yet the entire flower hall fell instantly silent. Do you object? Lu Wenqin paled, then straightened his back. Your Highness, you know well that this student is betrothed to Miss Pei. Though the daughter of a merchant may not be a match for a scholar of Hanlin caliber, I cherish her devotion. Hanlin caliber. Chu Lin cut him off, his fingertips tapping lightly on the table. Have you passed the imperial examinations? A ripple of quiet laughter rippled through the room. Lu Wenqin's ears flushed crimson, yet he drew a scroll of poetry from his sleeve. This humble student, though unworthy, offers a verse to entertain your highness. I nearly laughed coldly. In my past life, it was precisely these maudlin poems that won Chu Lin's favor, paving his path to swift advancement. Now he resorts to the same trick, unaware, copied. Chu Lin glanced at it, then flung the manuscript to the floor. This is Scholar Li's Song of the Frontier from the previous dynasty. You altered only 3 words. The flower hall erupted in commotion. Lu Wenqin turned ashen. Your Highness, this must be a frame-up. Take him away. Prince Chu's expression hardened, his voice as icy as frost. 30 strokes. 2 guards immediately seized Lu Wenqin. Only then did panic seize him. He struggled and looked at me. Lady Lingy, plead for mercy on my behalf. I feigned alarm and stood up, but accidentally knocked over the wine cup before me. My voice trembled, tears welling in my eyes. Yet from an unseen angle, I flashed Lu Wenqin a cold, mocking smile. His pupils suddenly contracted. The sound of cane strikes and agonized screams soon echoed through the courtyard. Each blow brought back memories of my previous life, the day I bled to death, and how his mother had stood outside the delivery room, laughing coldly. Let her scream. It won't do her any good. After 30 strokes, guards dragged the bloodied and mangled Lu Wenqin back to the flower hall. He lay sprawled on the floor, yet still struggled to lift his head and glare at me. his eyes filled with venomous hatred. Chu Lin took a leisurely sip of wine. Do you know why you were beaten? Lu Wenqin gritted his teeth. This humble student offended your highness. No. Chu Lin set down his cup. It's because you insulted Miss Pei. He turned to me. Miss Pei donated 1,000 taels of gold for military provisions 2 days ago. She is this prince's benefactor. Lu Wenqin jerked his head up. 1,000 taels of gold. He cried out. Wasn't that money meant to secure my official post? The room erupted in commotion. I timed my look of shock perfectly. What are you implying, young Master Lu? That money was for father to buy winter clothes for the border soldiers. You're lying. Lu Wenqin's face contorted. You clearly said. Enough. Chu Lin waved his hand. 10 more strokes. Throw him out. As Lu Wenqin was dragged away. He still screamed my name. The banquet continued as if nothing had happened. But I knew Chu Lin's gaze kept lingering on me, subtly yet persistently. After the feast ended, I stood by the side gate of the rear courtyard. Lu Wenqin lay sprawled on a bamboo cot. His wounded buttocks haphazardly bound with coarse cloth, bloodstains staining the fabric. Old Zhou, the steward, handed me a bronze gong. Rest assured, miss. As you instructed. We found the most eloquent old woman in town, Madame Zhang. A cold smile tugged at my lips. In my past life, when Lu Wenqin became the top scholar, the Lu family had similarly paraded through the streets with gongs and drums, letting the entire city know had climbed the social ladder. Begin. The moment the gong sounded, old woman Zhang bellowed at the top of her lungs. Come see. Scholar Lu has offended the war prince and is being publicly flogged. Neighbors and passers-by craned their necks. Old Zhang launched into her performance. This Lu scholar is truly outrageous. Not only did he force his way into the war prince's banquet, but he also stole someone else's poem and passed it off as his own. The war prince, with his piercing insight, saw right through him. Nonsense. A shrill scream cut her off. Lu Wenqin's sister, Lu Ruxue, pushed through the crowd, pointing an accusing finger at me. Pei Lingyi. How dare you ruin my brother's reputation like this? My eyes instantly welled up with tears. My voice trembling. Lu's sister. I was only escorting young Master Lu home. Bullshit. Liu's mother also burst forth. Dressed in coarse cloth yet carrying herself with the air of an official's wife. My son said you deliberately didn't give him an invitation, causing him to be humiliated. The crowd grew larger. I pinched myself hard, and tears immediately welled up. Mother-in-law. No. Mrs. Lu. How could I? That mother-in-law rang out just right. Whispers instantly rippled through the crowd, calling her mother-in-law before even marrying in. Miss Pei is truly devoted. Heard the Lius already consider Miss Pei their daughter-in-law. They've even started demanding her dowry. TSK. Now publicly insulting someone. What a wicked mother-in-law. Madame Liu's face turned ashen, and she raised her hand to strike me. I took a step back, feigning fear, but old Zhou immediately stepped in front of me. Madame Lu, my young mistress kindly escorted your son home. What is the meaning of this? Kindly, Lu Ruxue shrieked. She made every shop in town refuse to do business with our Lu family. The grain shop won't sell us rice. The cloth shop won't give us fabric. Even the herbalist. Schwerer. Madame Lu snapped. But it was too late. I lowered my head to wipe away tears, my voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. The day before yesterday, young Master Lu said he wanted to break off the engagement. I was so heartbroken. Maybe the shopkeepers misunderstood. The crowd erupted in commotion. Ingrate. The Pei family paid for his education, and now that he's passed the provincial exams, he wants to call off the engagement. No wonder the war king wants to punish him. Serves him right. Poor Miss Pei. With her heart so devoted. Madame Lu trembled with rage, violently flipping over the bamboo bed. Lu Wenqin slammed onto the ground. Waking with a wail, he looked around in confusion. His eyes flashed with fury when he saw me. Pilingi. You. Young Master Lu. I knelt beside him first, gripping his shoulders. To outsiders, it looked intimate. But my nails dug deep into his wounds. Your injuries aren't healed. Don't get angry, he gasped in pain. Momentarily speechless, I leaned close to his ear, whispering softly enough for only us to hear. Does it hurt? This is just the beginning. Then I shouted, quickly. Take young Master Lu home to recuperate. The servants lifted the bamboo stretcher and continued onward. Old Zhang led the way, banging a gong. Make way. The faithless scholar Lu is heading home. The crowd parted with jeers, some even hurling rotten vegetable scraps at Lu Wenqin. Lu Rishua supported her mother as they trailed behind, glaring back at me repeatedly with eyes that seemed to want to devour me alive. I stood at the doorway, only dropping my feigned expression of grievance once they vanished around the corner. Miss, what a brilliant plan. Old Zhou couldn't help but praise. The Lu family's reputation is utterly ruined now. I gave a cold laugh. Not nearly enough. What they inflicted upon me in my past life, I would repay tenfold. 3 days later, when Lu Wenqin was able to get out of bed, his first act was to storm over demanding an explanation. I was prepared, dressed in simple, plain robes, wearing no makeup. Palingi, he hobbled in. Why did you spread rumors to ruin my reputation? Startled, I rose abruptly, knocking over the teacup on the table. Spilled tea drenched a letter. Frantically trying to salvage it, I accidentally let him glimpse the writing. It was a love poem Zhu Yao had written to him. Lu Wenqin's face drained of color as he snatched the paper. Where did you get this? I don't know. My eyes filled with tears. The maid found it while cleaning the guest room. Young Master Lu. Who is this Miss Zhu? He clenched the paper, a flicker of panic crossing his eyes before hardening again. My affairs are none of your concern. As for you, go to the streets immediately and clear your name. Say those rumors were all your fabrication. I lowered my head and sobbed. But those shopkeepers really have stopped doing business with the Lu family. Then start them up again, he roared. Or don't ever think of setting foot in my Lu household again. My shoulders trembled, as if I were terrified, but in truth, it concealed the cold smile at the corner of my mouth. He still believed I would do anything to marry him. Just like in my past life. I lifted tear-filled eyes. I heard. Miss Zhu has already. Shut up. He seized my wrist. You dared investigate me. I sucked in a sharp breath from the pain, but smiled. Not only did I investigate, I know she's already 2 months pregnant. I leaned closer, whispering. Tell me, if this gets out, do you think your reputation as a lofty scholar can survive? He jerked his hand away, stumbling back as if burned, fear finally flickering in his eyes. Just then, a maid rushed in. Miss, an invitation has arrived from the War Prince's mansion, inviting you to admire the plum blossoms tomorrow. I took the gold-embossed invitation and waved it at Lu Wenqin. Young Master Lu, what do you think, should I go or not? His face drained of color. He staggered away, his earlier arrogance completely gone. I stroked the invitation, feeling pleased. The next day, at the War Prince's residence, Chu Lin stood with his hands behind his back. Have you considered it? He cut straight to the point. I'll ensure your Pei family's wealth and safety. You supply my military provisions. Add one more condition. Help me destroy Lu Wenqin. Chu Lin turned, his piercing gaze fixed on me. Reason. He betrayed me. I met his eyes directly. Is that reason enough? A cold wind swept through the plum grove, lifting the hem of his robe. After a long pause, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly, pleased to cooperate. Miss Pei. On the way back to the mansion, my lips remained turned up in a smile, with the War King as my backing. Lu Wenqin, your good days are numbered. Sure enough, 3 days later, Lu Wenqin came calling again. He feigned deep emotion. Miss Pei, I acted rashly the other day. I've come to apologize. Seated in the hall, I replied leisurely. You flatter yourself. Mr. Lu. His expression stiffened when I offered no seat, but he quickly plastered on a smile. After much thought, I still can't let you go. If you publicly apologize and clear the rumors, our marriage can proceed. I nearly laughed out loud. In my past life, it was precisely this hypocritical facade that had completely deceived me. Oh, has young Master Lu no objection to marrying the daughter of a merchant now? He frowned. As long as you bring all your shops in the capital as your dowry, I shall speak well of you before my colleagues. He lowered his voice. Those shops will serve me well. So that's it. Prince He has been courting him lately. Coveting the Pei family's commercial network in the capital, I rose and walked to the desk, retrieving a brocade box. Lu Wenqin's eyes lit up, expecting me to fetch the land deeds. I opened the box and pulled out the marriage contract inside. Lu Wenqin, do you remember this? He nodded. Of course I remember. That day, your father, Rip. I tore the marriage contract in two. Lu Wenqin sprang to his feet. What are you doing? Breaking off the engagement. I smiled. Lu Wenqin, today, I, Pei Lingyi, sever all ties with you. His face flushed crimson. You worthless woman. Without me, who would ever want a merchant's daughter like you? He grabbed my wrist. Do you really think the war prince fancied you? It was nothing but a game. Just as I was about to retort, a cold voice cut through the air outside the door. My consort, dare you lay a hand on her? Chu Lin had appeared at the doorway unnoticed, his black python-patterned robe lending him an aura of divine authority. Lu Wenqin released me as if electrocuted, stumbling to his knees. Your Highness. Chu Lin strode forward, shielding me behind him. Get out. Lu Wenqin knelt, retreating 2 steps before raising his head. Your Highness, you must understand this woman was already betrothed to me. Now she's fickle. Betrothal. Chu Lin sneered coldly, glancing at the shredded marriage contract on the floor. Where is it? Lu Wenqin fell silent. I promptly adopted a look of grievance. Your Highness, young Master Lu insisted I surrender all my shops in the capital before he would marry me. A cold glint flashed in Chu Lin's eyes. Extorting this prince's consort. Consort. Lu Wenqin gasped, his face turning deathly pale. Chu Lin wrapped an arm around my shoulder. In 3 days, His Majesty will issue the imperial decree for our marriage. He looked down at Lu Wenqin. Now, get out of my sight. Lu Wenqin scrambled toward the door, yet turned back to glare at me, his eyes venomous as a snake's fangs. Pei Lingyi, don't gloat too soon. A single glance from Chu Lin, and guards immediately dragged him out. Once silence returned to the hall, my shoulders relaxed, and I couldn't help but laugh. Princess consort, Your Highness. That's a rather bold lie. Chu Lin's expression turned serious. It is no lie. He drew a scroll of imperial yellow silk from his sleeve. The edict is drafted. Only the seal remains. I stared at him in shock. His eyes held emotions I couldn't decipher. I need your business acumen. You need my power. This marriage is the most secure alliance. I took the edict, my fingers trembling slightly. This went further than I'd imagined. But happy cooperation, Your Highness. I looked up and gave him a bright smile. The next day, the maid Chuyer rushed into the courtyard, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. Bad news, miss. This is being passed around everywhere on the streets. I took it and saw a crude drawing of a woman leaning against a man's embrace, accompanied by a poem. The merchant's daughter knows no shame. Night after night she seeks pleasure in the prince's tower. Signed, surprisingly, an informed source. My fingertips trembled. Then I let out a cold laugh. Lu Wenqin, is this the best you can do? There's worse. Chuyer trembled with rage. They say the prince forcibly took a commoner's daughter. That you that you're no longer pure. I crumpled the paper into a ball. To the prince's mansion. No sooner had I stepped out than I overheard two loafers muttering at the street corner. Heard that Pei family girl and the prince have long been. I lifted the sedan curtain, ready to rebuke them, only to see an old vegetable vendor swing her carrying pole at them. Spit your filthy lies. The Prince of Jean safeguards our border peace and you dare slander him. The two loafers fled, clutching their heads. The old woman chased after them, cursing, "If I catch you spreading gossip again, they'll break your damned legs." My heart warmed, and I lowered the curtain. It seemed Lu Wenqin had underestimated Chu Lin standing among the common folk. Dozens of villagers had gathered before the War King's residence, led by none other than the vegetable vendor. Spotting my sedan chair, she stepped forward. "Miss Pei, fear not. We all know who's spreading these lies." Indeed, a young wife chimed in. "This morning, someone offered us silver to spread these lies. We pretended to agree, but turned around and reported it to the authorities." My nose stung. In my past life, when the Lu family tortured me to death, no one spoke for me. Now, so many were willing to stand up for me. Chu Lin strode out of the mansion, first nodding to me, then bowing to the crowd. "Thank you all for speaking up so bravely, Your Highness. You're too kind." The old woman patted her chest. "We've already handed those men over to the authorities. Rest assured. We'll root out the mastermind behind this." 3 days later, the truth was laid bare. Bailiffs paraded several ruffians through the streets, each bearing a sign reading "Slanderer" across their chests. They shouted all the way. Lu the candidate paid us silver to slander the war prince and Miss Pei. Standing at the tea house window, I watched the scene unfold, sipping my tea with a satisfied smile. Suddenly, commotion erupted below. Lu Wenqin was paraded past by the constables. His scholar's blue robe had been stripped off, leaving him clad only in a white undershirt. In bold, ink-soaked characters across it were the words, "Slanderer." Chuyer rushed over breathlessly. "Miss, His Majesty summons you and the prince to the palace immediately." In the hall of mental cultivation, the emperor narrowed his eyes at me. "You are Pei Lingyi." I knelt prostrate. "This humble maiden greets your majesty. Rise." His tone was cold as he turned to Chu Lin. "My brother, I know you favor this girl, but she is of merchant stock. She is unsuitable as a principal consort." My fingertips trembled. Chu Lin stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I will marry no other." "Nonsense." The emperor slammed his desk. "I have already drafted the decree. Granting her the status of a concubine is already a favor." "A concubine?" I snapped my head up, meeting the fleeting calculation in the emperor's eyes. So that was it. He feared the Pei family's wealth would bolster Chu Lin's power. Chu Lin suddenly unfastened his court robes, revealing a body covered in scars. "Your Majesty, I took the battlefield at 14. Every wound here was earned defending the empire." His voice grew deep. "Now I merely seek to marry the woman I love as my primary consort. Will you deny me even that?" The hall fell deathly silent. The emperor's expression shifted several times before he finally ordered coldly, "This matter shall be discussed later. Withdraw." On the way out of the palace, Chu Lin clasped my hand tightly. "Don't be afraid." I shook my head. "I'm not afraid. It's just that I've brought trouble upon your highness. Call me Chu Lin." He cut me off. "Since we are to be husband and wife, there should be no formality between us." Outside the palace gates, a vast crowd of commoners knelt in a dense mass. The old vegetable seller knelt at the very front, holding aloft a petition. "We beseech the emperor to grant the war prince and Miss Pei their union." Tears finally spilled from my eyes. Chu Lin gently wiped them away and bowed deeply to the crowd. Back at the mansion, the steward reported, Lu Wenqin had been stripped of his official rank and sentenced to exile 3,000 li away. But Prince Yi intervened as guarantor, commuting the sentence to 6 months confinement. I sneered coldly. "He got off easy. Chu Lin wrapped his arms around me from behind. No rush. Well, play with him slowly. His breath brushed my ear. We have all the time in the world. Indeed. We have all the time in the world. Lu Wenqin. The debts between us will settle them, one by one. Miss. Lu Wenqin has been released from prison. Chuer rushed in breathlessly. Prince Yi personally went to fetch him. My needle and thread froze mid-stitch. The emperor was openly backing Prince Yi to challenge Chu Lin. Keep watching him. 3 days later. Chuer brought news that made me sick to my stomach. Lu Wenqin gave Zhu Yao to Prince Yi. Chuer's face flushed crimson with fury. Zhu Yao is carrying his child. I sprang to my feet, knocking over the teacup. Images of Lu Wenqin and Zhu Yao growing old together in my past life flashed through my mind. How could he be so heartless now? Prepare the sedan chair. To the back alley of Prince Yi's residence. At dusk. A small sedan chair pulled silently to a halt at the side gate of the Yi prince's residence. The curtain lifted, revealing Zhu Yao's deathly pale face, starkly jarring against the twilight. Her belly was already slightly rounded. She walked with her hands cradling her stomach. Her eyes filled with utter despair. Lu Wenqin followed behind, speaking to the mansion's steward with an obsequious expression. The steward leered at Zhu Yao, reaching out to grope her face. My stomach churned violently. How could I have given everything to such a beast in my past life? Upon returning to the mansion, I immediately summoned old Zhou. Find several storytellers. They must embellish today's events thoroughly. I sneered coldly, emphasized Prince Yi's peculiar perversions and Lu Wenqin's selling his wife for advancement. 3 days later. Newly composed nursery rhymes echoed through the capital's tea houses and taverns. Prince Yi lusts for another's wife. Lu the lad sells his bride for riches. Some storytellers vividly described how Prince Yi tormented the pregnant woman and how Lu Wenqin counted silver outside the door. When Chu Lin arrived at the mansion, I was writing new lyrics for the nursery rhyme. That was a ruthless move. He picked up a sheet of manuscript paper. Now the entire court is discussing Prince Yi's perversions. Even the emperor looked awkward when summoning him. I chuckled softly. This is just the beginning. I handed him another sheet. What do you think of this version? It read, "The war king guards the borders to protect the homeland, while the Yi king plays with another man's wife in his bedchamber." Chu Lin raised an eyebrow. Are you trying to paint me as a saint? The people need a contrast. I leaned closer to him. The more upright and noble you are, the more despicable the Yi king appears. Suddenly, he seized my hand. Pei, if you were a man, you'd be the foremost strategist in the court. Just as I was about to respond, commotion erupted outside the door. Lu Wenqin strode in with an air of superiority. Pei, he declared haughtily, I hear the emperor only permitted you to be a concubine. He scrutinized me from head to toe. Well, someone like you. I cut him off. Lu Wenqin, I hear you've been promoted. Chief clerk of the Ministry of War. I feigned surprise. Oh my. Isn't that under Prince Yi's jurisdiction? His face stiffened. I continued. Trading a pregnant wife for advancement. Young Master Lu, you truly think outside the box. What nonsense are you spouting? His face flushed crimson. Zhu Yao served Prince Yi of her own free will. Chu Lin suddenly spoke up. This prince was unaware that the court now judges officials based on the sincerity of their wife offering. Only then did Lu Wenqin notice Chu Lin in the shadows. His knees instantly buckling. Your Highness. I stepped before Lu Wenqin, looking down at him. Lu Wenqin, do you know, your noble deed is now sung throughout the capital. I hummed softly the nursery rhyme. Prince Yi loves another's wife. Young Lu offers his own for fortune and glory. You. He snapped his head up, eyes blazing with venom. You spread these rumors. Rumors. I sneered coldly. Shall I summon servants from Prince Yi's mansion to confront you? Chu Lin rose, and a single glance made Lu Wenqin shrink back. Get out. If I catch you harassing Miss Pei again, next time it won't just be your reputation that's banished. Lu Wenqin scrambled toward the door, stumbling and crawling, yet turned back to glare at me. Pei Lingyi. Do you think climbing onto the war prince's coattails guarantees safety? The emperor will never permit your marriage. I smiled faintly. Unlike you, Mr. Lu, who climbs the ladder by offering women, your future seems bright indeed. His face flushed crimson, then turned ashen, finally fading to the color of earth as he fled in disarray. Chu Lin approached me. Yesterday, His Majesty summoned Prince Yi and me. He said he'll host a spring banquet and announce our marriage there. I sensed the unspoken meaning in his words. But it'll be demoted to a secondary consort. He clenched his fists. My brother is determined to keep me down. I smoothed his furrowed brow. Why the rush? The spring banquet is still a month away. I glanced toward Prince Yi's residence. That's ample time for Prince Yi to ruin his reputation. That night, I had a dream. In it, Chu Yao, covered in blood, reached out to me. Save me. Jolted awake, I immediately dispatched men to investigate Chu Yao's current situation. Lu Wenqin may be ruthless, but perhaps I could find the key to bringing down Prince Yi through this woman. At the spring banquet, 100 flowers vied for beauty, yet none outshone the open and covert rivalries among the noble ladies seated throughout the hall. Seated at the far end, I coldly observed the young ladies competing to curry favor with Chu Lin, dressed in a black python-patterned robe. He handled their advances expressionlessly until his gaze met mine. Then a faint smile touched his lips. Prince Yi abruptly rose, raising his wine cup. Your Majesty, this humble brother has a request. The emperor lifted his eyes lazily. Speak. Prince Yi pointed directly at me. This humble brother wishes to take Lady Pei as a secondary consort. The hall erupted in commotion. My nails dug into my palms, yet my expression remained unreadable. Well done. Lu Wenqin, a poisonous scheme. If I entered Prince Yi's mansion, not only would Chu Lin's reputation be ruined, but the Pei family's wealth would also fall under the emperor's control. Chu Lin's wine cup cracked with a sharp snap. The emperor feigned deep thought. But Lady Pei is already betrothed to the war prince, merely a concubine. Prince Yi shot a smug glance at Chu Lin. Your humble servant offers her the position of secondary consort, hardly a dishonor. I looked at Chu Lin. Dark currents churned in his eyes. Just then, Lu Wenqin peered out from behind Prince Yi, half his face visible, flashing me a venomous grin. Chu Lin abruptly rose, unfastening the jade belt at his waist. The 9 jade plaques clattered together, ringing out crisply. The entire court fell instantly silent. That jade sash was personally bestowed by the late emperor, symbolizing Chu Lin's 9 life-saving military exploits. With a thud, Chu Lin hurled the sash before the throne. This subject offers all his military merits to wed Pei Lingyi as my principal consort. A deathly silence fell. The emperor's face twisted in fury. Do you know what you're saying? Chu Lin knelt on one knee, yet stood as straight as a pine. I implore your Majesty to grant this wish. My chest burned with heat. Rage surged in the emperor's eyes. But before the assembled court, he could not refuse. Finally, he ground out the words through clenched teeth. Granted. The banquet ended in disarray. As we left the palace, I caught sight of Prince Yi slapping Lu Wenqin hard across the face. Useless fool. Is this the brilliant plan you promised? Lu Wenqin clutched his stinging cheek, his gaze sweeping over Prince Yi's shoulder to meet mine. His eyes burned with hatred. I offered him a faint smile, mouthing silently. Serves you right. On the wedding day, the entire capital was adorned with festive lanterns and decorations. Citizens spontaneously lined the streets, scattering petals and chanting, "May the war prince's consort enjoy a century of bliss." Inside the bridal chamber, Chu Lin lifted my veil, his eyes holding a tenderness I'd never seen before. He asked, "Do you regret it?" I shook my head. You traded your military achievements for me. It was worth it. It was. He took my hand. When I first sought your cooperation, it was indeed only for military supplies. His fingertips gently brushed my brow. But now, Pei from this day forward, you are no one's pawn. You are my consort. Standing shoulder to shoulder with me, my heart trembled. In past lives and this one. This was the first time anyone had ever said they would stand beside me. Just as we reached the halfway point of the wedding wine, Chuer burst in frantically. Miss. News from Prince Yi's mansion. Zhu Yao is dead. My wine cup trembled in my hand. Chu Lin frowned. How did she die? They say childbirth complications. But Chuer lowered her voice. Our spy in Prince Yi's mansion says she was tortured to death. The body was unrecognizable. My stomach churned violently. Did Lu Wenqin know? How would he react? Chu Lin squeezed my hand. Well, handle it tomorrow. I nodded. But my mind was already racing. Zhu Yao's death might be an opportunity to bring the Yi prince to ruin. Outside, the moon hung high in the sky. I leaned against Chu Lin's shoulder. My thoughts already flying toward tomorrow. Zhu Yao's body lay discarded in the back alley of Prince Yi's residence, wrapped only in a tattered straw mat. When I lifted the mat, Chuer behind me vomited immediately. It could scarcely be called a corpse. Her body was covered in bruises. All 10 fingers broken, her lower body a bloody mess, and her abdomen bore distinct boot prints. The coroner murmured, "The child was kicked out alive." My stomach churned violently, but I forced myself to endure the nausea. Closing Zhu Yao's eyes that refused to close in death with my own hands. Prepare a top-grade coffin for her burial. I removed my cloak and draped it over Zhu Yao. Find an artist to document every detail of this. That night, I visited Grand Censor Zhou. When he saw the sketches, his hand trembled so violently he nearly dropped his teacup. This is worse than a beast. I spoke softly. Minister Zhou, I understand your daughter was also taken as a secondary consort by Prince Yi last year, only to die of illness 3 months later. Minister Zhou's face instantly drained of color. I promptly handed him a letter. This was found among Zhu Yao's personal garments, bearing the seal of Prince Yi's mansion. After reading the letter, tears streamed down his aged face. This old servant will submit a memorial tomorrow. The next morning at court, 12 memorials simultaneously accused Prince Yi of harming pregnant women and employing cruel torture. Censor Zhou even displayed Zhu Yao's portrait before the assembly, sending shockwaves through the court. Lu Wenqin is inextricably linked to this affair. Standing beside Chu Lin, I watched the farce unfold with cold detachment. He personally delivered Zhu Yao to Prince Yi. Chu Lin understood and suddenly declared, "Your Majesty, I accuse Lu Wenqin of selling his wife for personal gain and aiding tyranny." When guards dragged Lu Wenqin into the hall, his trousers were already soaked through. As Inspector Zhou read aloud their correspondence detailing how he had presented the pregnant woman for the prince's amusement, Lu collapsed to the floor like a dead dog. The emperor's face turned ashen, yet he had no choice but to issue an edict placing Prince Yi under house arrest and sending Lu Wenqin to prison to await trial. On the way back to the mansion, Chu Lin's brow furrowed deeply. His Majesty won't let this rest. Sure enough, 3 days later, the emperor responded to popular demand by naming Chu Lin crown prince, yet simultaneously cut off the grain supply to the armies under his command. 300,000 soldiers. 3 months without provisions. Chu Lin stood before the military maps late into the night, his silhouette heavy with resolve. This is forcing me to rebel, so they can eliminate me under the guise of justice. I lit the candlestick and placed a stack of deeds on the table. 72 of the Pei family's shops in Jiangnan will be taken over tomorrow. The silver obtained will be enough to buy grain. Chu Lin spun around abruptly. This is your entire fortune. Not entirely. I produced a seal. There's also the Pei family's ancestral home and farmland. They can be liquidated within 3 days. In the candlelight, something flickered in his eyes. Suddenly, he yanked me into his embrace with such force my ribs ached. Should I seize the throne? I shall never betray you. Those 8 words made my tears fall like rain. In my past life, I squandered my family's fortune for Lu Wenqin, only to die in a bloody collapse. Now, having poured everything into Chulin, I received a promise worth 1,000 gold. With the grain crisis looming, we split our efforts. Chulin remained at the military camp to steady the troops, while I mobilized all my commercial connections to secretly procure grain from various regions. The most perilous mission saw me personally escorting a grain convoy through the blockade lines of the Yi Prince's forces. As arrows whistled past my ears, my thoughts were, if I died here, at least I'd have lived up to Chulin's vow. I shall not betray you. The first grain carts rolled into the camp, soldiers' cheers piercing the sky. Chulin knelt before me, taking my hand. This debt of gratitude I and my 300,000 soldiers shall never forget. Late into the night in the military tent, we studied the map, planning our next move. Chulin's finger paused over the capital city. The emperor will not sit idly by and wait for his demise. I pressed his hand down. Then we force him to strike first. I drew a letter from my sleeve, left by Zhu Yao before her death. The letter detailed Prince Yi and the emperor's conspiracy to frame loyal officials and embezzle military funds. After reading it, a cold gleam flashed in Chulin's eyes. That's enough. Outside the tent, the autumn wind howled. Inside, the candle flickered. We shared a knowing smile, our understanding as deep as that of comrades in arms forged over years. 3 days later, Chulin achieved a great victory and led his army back to the capital. That very night, the imperial throne changed hands. The next day, Lu Wenqin was led to the execution ground. I watched from the city wall as the executioner bound him to the wooden frame. He suddenly threw his head back and screamed, "Pei Lingyi, even as a ghost, I will never let you off." A smile played at my lips as I sneered. "Fool." The executioner raised his blade, the first cut slicing into Lu Wenqin's right chest. His agonized screams echoed across the square. Yet the people cheered and rejoiced. This hypocrite who sold his own wife for glory had finally received his just deserts. 3,600 cuts. From sunrise to sunset, Chulin returned in full military regalia, the head of Prince Yi hanging from his saddle. His first act upon dismounting was to help me down the city wall. "Stop watching. It's filthy." 3 days later, the emperor suddenly fell ill and passed away. The imperial physicians attributed it to a fatal stroke of rage. But I knew it was the work of Chulin's agent planted in the royal kitchen. At the coronation ceremony, Chulin did something that shocked all the officials. He publicly draped half of the dragon robe over my shoulders. "The emperor and empress shall rule this realm together." His voice was not loud, yet each word rang with authority. "From this day forth, the empress may preside over court affairs. A ministry of commerce shall be established within the inner palace, overseeing all trade under heaven." The court erupted in uproar. The aged chancellor stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Your Majesty, this violates ancestral precedent." Chulin sneered coldly. "Ancestral tradition." He pointed at me. "Without the empress squandering her family fortune, the 30,000-strong army would have mutinied long ago. Without her covert logistics, the 3 frontier cities would have starved. Half this empire belongs to her." My eyes stung with tears. In my past life, I was confined to the inner quarters, raising children and tending to my husband, only to die from hemorrhaging. Now I stand in the imperial court, ruling the realm alongside the one I love. The first act of the newly established Ministry of Commerce was to open a women's academy and a weaving bureau. I personally selected widows and orphaned girls abandoned by their families, teaching them literacy and accounting so they could survive by their own hands. After court, Chulin often visited the Ministry of Commerce to find me, sometimes bearing a bouquet, other times simply watching me review memorials in silence. This day, he mysteriously blindfolded me and led me to the imperial garden. "Open your eyes." I opened them to behold an exquisitely crafted Jiangnan-style garden. Small bridges spanned flowing streams. Pavilions and towers stood amidst the landscape, a perfect replica of my family's ancestral home. "Do you like it?" He seemed nervous. I gathered 30 artisans from the south and spent 3 months. I threw myself into his arms, my tears soaking his imperial robe. He remembered every casual remark I'd ever made, including that one about missing home. A year after Chu Lin ascended the throne, I gave birth to his first legitimate son. Holding the infant, Chu Lin proclaimed a general amnesty and tax reductions in the imperial court. The people cheered enlightened ruler. But I knew this was only the beginning. In the still of night, I still occasionally dream of my past life. I dream of lying in a pool of blood, watching Lu Wenqin laugh and chat with his new lover. But whenever this happens, Chu Lin always turns to pull me into his embrace. His warmth snaps me back to reality. In this life, I am no longer a stepping stone for anyone. I am the Empress, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Emperor. Those nightmares from my past life have finally become fleeting clouds. Holding our sleeping prince, Chu Lin and I stand side by side on the city ramparts, watching the lights of 10,000 households. He asked, "What are you thinking about?" I smiled. I was wondering how many years our golden age might last. He took my hand. Not just this lifetime. Then he pulled me and the child into his embrace. In the next life, and the next after that, I will always find you. In the distance, the first rays of dawn pierced the clouds, illuminating the entire capital city. The end.